Hey, 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 welcome back. Happy Friday night. How are you doing out there? It is Friday night, right? Had to think about that for a second. I am still off with the days. Isn't that crazy? There's absolutely no excuse, just off with the days. Welcome back, everybody. Looks like we're live. Kaz, great to see you. Happy cocktail night in Wisconsin. Oh, I hope things are going well out there and on the Cape. Cheryl, greetings. Hot chocolate night be getting much colder. Yeah, how funny is this? I heard it was going to get warm over the weekend. Cheryl's on Cape Cod, so like 2 hours away. Um, but then it said it was going to snow. So yeah, I don't get it. I don't know what we got. Huda, Ava, Heidi, it is late over there. Holy, you're up in the middle of the night. I hope everything's all right. I hope you're feeling all right. Man, I've been up in the middle of the night every night lately. I posted the show so late today because I don't know, I just can't sleep anymore, like ever. Like I wake up at 3 and then usually 3:15. I have a new timing thing. And then again at like 4:15, and like I didn't even go back to sleep. I'm just up at 4. And it's like what the hell is going on with this now, right? A new version of hell, and then having to wake up, and drive the kids around. Oh my God. But I made it. I laid down for a few minutes and I don't even know if I fell asleep, but does anybody else have that where you just wake up and you're what, like it's not like insomnia, right? It's like I'm ready to go. I'm like full blast ready to start the day and it's like 4:15 and I'm thinking there was a time when I woke up at 5:30 every morning. But 4:15, like that just seems like we're going in the wrong direction here. Just awful. Heidi says, Kaz, how goes it with your Christmas tree topper? Oh, that's a great question. Judy, great to see you. Give a thumbs up while you're waiting. Oh, thank you so much. I noticed from watching someone else's stream, I was doing exercise with my exercise girl who I subscribe to, and I noticed that before I've never been in a pre-live stream, right? Because I'm always here, turning it on, and I'm not in it. And I didn't realize that like it's there, like that you could that I didn't realize that you can see each other and like there can be a screen before we start. So I need to look into that because I thought like this girl has I forget what her name is, or I think it's like Christine Dorner or Dormer or something like that. She's absolutely fantastic. Lots of step and aerobic exercise. She's just gorgeous and she's got a great personality. And I want her body, so I'm doing her exercises. But she's got like a little video going with music and stuff before people log on. I thought, oh, I didn't even know that was possible. I might need another 5 years before I figure out how to do that. Yeah. But we'll see. It seemed really cool. Thank you, Judy. That's a really sweet thought. April, great to see you. Happy cocktail night in Illinois. Great to see you. Loved your journal. So, 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 so good. Joyce, great to see you. Oh, I don't think I've seen you for a while. You are coming to us in Pennsylvania. I hope things are good out there. I bet it's cold. Gail in Australia, good morning. Great to see you and welcome back. Melissa in Canada, cheers to you. Cheers, my dears. I've got water tonight. I am so thirsty that if I was drinking booze, we'd have a problem tonight. Yeah, gosh, everything is just going screwy. I don't know what it is. I have a good attitude right now. I have to admit, I have a good attitude. But I just feel like I'm falling apart. Maybe it's the age, right? Becky, great to see you. Good evening. Cheers, my dears, to you too. Thank you. I couldn't. The reason I was a minute late was because I was upstairs and I could not find any of my clothing. And I found this shirt with chickens on it. And I found my chicken earrings. And I thought, dang it, it's meant to be. Let's go. I didn't realize I made myself late with my chickens. Sorry about that. Black Thread Studio Stitching Cafe, great to see you. Cheers to date night. That's it. Great to see you too. So excited to talk about Caswell. Me too. I have so many things to tell you about Caswell. Barbara, great to see you. That reminds me, I wish I had my phone. I'll tell you why in a little while. Barbara, great to see you. I have hours of hooking in before Bill is out of bed. I make the most. Oh, right. I see. In the morning, you get up early, and Yeah, I need to get back. I need to get back into that. The thing is, when you wake up so early, like I'm holding on to the dear hope that I will fall back to sleep and I will have a normal day instead of feeling pukey and sweaty all day because I'm so tired, you know? And it almost makes it worse. And we all know it makes it worse if you go to sleep for like another 20 minutes or half an hour, because you end up dreaming that like the Yeti monster's chasing you and you're stuck in an elevator and there's a meteor, you know, heading your way, and it's never good, is it? And you wake up being even more tired than you were 45 minutes earlier. Melanie, great to see you. Melanie, was it you who asked me about the shell? Because I put the shell up just so you know. If I think it was you who asked about the shell. Um, Gosh, it was only yesterday. My brain's like, Washington State. Oh no, it's cold and gloomy there, as usual. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm happy about these chickens. Thank you for noticing my chickens. That makes me feel great. Before I forget, did you see the video I took yesterday? I know we had some sound problems on there, but I was so happy to go visit Pierre Sylvain in his studio with my friend Sherry. And gosh, I had no idea that he has such an enormous body of work. He sells tons of stuff, but he also has an enormous body of work. And there are some pieces that he told us that he would just not part with. They're pieces that remind him of a certain thing, like his Louis Armstrong stained glass in the living room reminds him that even though that was almost impossible and made him think that he could not do stained glass, he did it in the end. So he leaves that piece. He said he could have sold that piece like 100 times, but there's no way he's selling that piece because he leaves it in plain sight so that it constantly reminds him that he can do the thing that he thought he couldn't do. There's so many great messages there. There was one point where the dogs were really loud upstairs. I'm so sorry about that. There wasn't anything I could do with the sound there. I tried to isolate it on the video, but I hope that you were able to hear most of the content because he was saying things that I thought were really valuable and useful. And even though we were talking about textiles as well as glass and as well as painting, I think he said a lot of things that were really transferable to any sort of creative life. And God, he's just such a sweetheart, such a sweetheart. Black Thread Studio. I acquired my first, oh, your first wool today for this project. Oh, fantastic. I've only used thrifted yarn. If I'm purchasing the smaller patterns in linen, what size strip should I use? I'll be cutting with rotary cutter. Okay, great question. So I'm gonna start answering questions right now about Caswell Carpet. So we put not all of the blocks in the Caswell Carpet. The whole episode tonight is about the Caswell Carpet, and I might log off a hair earlier just because of tiredness, and I have to speak tomorrow. I keep saying I'm speaking in Plymouth tomorrow because I'm speaking to the Mayflower Guild, but it's actually in Reading, Massachusetts, which is nowhere near Plymouth. Jane, thank you. Jane, I know I was making you panic because I kept saying Plymouth. I knew I had it right in my email, but in my head, Mayflower, Plymouth, but it's in Reading, Mass. So I know I've got to be up like crazy early with the chickens tomorrow and be heading quite a long ways away. But let's start talking about Caswell Carpet, and then I'll finish doing my greetings and stuff. This is just a small excerpt of the Caswell Carpet. I will define it and all of that stuff in just a few minutes. Let me grab my notes. They were under the camera. So of the blocks, they're not all a uniform size. And I want to address a couple of things about this. So just short preface, the group project for this year, whereas last year it was the G's Bend, and Jeannie Coates is managing it. I'm just helping out with the patterns. I came up with the idea too. I think it was a very good idea because we've talked about the Caswell Carpet a lot, and I hope that you like the idea. It seems to be a good one. I wanted to do something very different than G's Bend. It was so abstract and modern and wonderful, but I wanted to swing the pendulum very far so that we could really stretch ourselves. So there will be a challenge where we are all, if you would like, making some of the blocks that are present in this enormous 12-foot by 12-foot Caswell Carpet, right? That is like this early, middle, 1830s, 19th century carpet. So I have, out of all of the blocks that are there, I drew 21 of them. And I'm happy to draw more. I'll show you some of the ones that I didn't do today in the slideshow. And if you like others, just please say to me, that's one that I'd like to do. I'll just sit down and do it. I'm so you know, right now that I chose 20 and then another one to give like a good sort of sampling of beginner stuff, intermediate stuff, and advanced stuff, and then beyond. They're all you know, primitive style patterns. They we'll look at the slides, but you know, they're blocks that look like a Baltimore quilt. So to make a long story short, too late. I put the individual blocks up on ribbon candy hooking, and they are approximately, because they are not the same size from block to block, they are approximately a smaller size, which is approximately 10 inches, versus a larger size. Arian, what do we do? 16 inches? 18 inches?
The smaller.
The larger.
The small are either 10 by 12.
The larger.
The larger about 16.
Thank you.
16, 16.
Sorry. I'm sorry. You heard me say it twice, though, right? Twice. So the smaller size is approximately 10 inches. The larger is approximately 16. And I say approximately, not because I'm going to make it smaller and rip you off when the pattern, because they're irregular and some are squares, some are rectangles. So I'm giving an average. So to answer that question, if your square is 10, it's, you know, it's fairly small, but I've done a lot of kits that are 10-inch squares in primitive number 8. You know, it's harder with less loops, but it really is going to depend on which of the designs you choose, because some of them are super intricate with the smaller ones. With the smaller ones, I'd say if you're a beginner, a good guide would be like using the yarn. I know you just bought wool, but using the yarn would work great for the smaller size, right? Because it's going to come up a little bit smaller. Each loop is going to come up a little smaller. I would say guide, you know, 5 to 7, cut 5 to 7. But hey, if people are doing 3s, if people are doing them in sock yarn, if people are doing them in 8s or 10s, they're still going to come out great. It becomes a question of how you like to work and what you like the finished piece to look like. So let's talk more on that too, because I'll give you some examples as we get into the show a little bit more. Let's see. Yes, it was you. Okay, great. So the shell is there. It's very pretty. Um, Thank you. It was a fun show. And, you know, I wanted to talk about his Underground Railroad series going into Martin Luther King weekend. I don't want to brush over it, Martin Luther King Day, because it's Inauguration Day. I wanted to be sure that at least here on this channel that we talked about it and we didn't forget that that was happening. And he has done so much evocative and painful work regarding African American history and slavery and the Underground Railroad and Middle Passage and all. I mean, it's all so stab you through the heart. And, you know, we just said, you know, let's just do it this week. So the video's there for the weekend and people will find it if they're interested. He is a great person to interview because he's so literal. Like he's so sweet and what word am I looking for? He's so sweet and sincere that he's like so literal. I mean, you ask him something, he gives you such a complete answer. There's nothing in his head. You can see it on his face. There's nothing in his head that's going, well, I don't want to give that away, so I'm going to say this and kind of sidestep that question. He tells you he gives you exactly the answers of how he does stuff, how he figured stuff out. You know, he's not cagey at all. He is just a super passionate, natural, heart on the sleeve artist, right? Born to be an artist. And yeah, I always enjoy being with him. He's a friend and I love him. But it's great talking to him in as a professional, you know, professional to professional and asking him questions that I hope represent questions that you would have asked him. And man, he was there with some amazing answers. Um, Hey, Nikki. Hey, good to see you. Happy Friday night. Karen, happy Friday night. It is cold and snowy in Black Forest, Colorado. I believe it. Gayla, I think that's you, Gayla. Good to see you. Sharon, great to see you. He is so interesting and so talented. Dave, great to see you. What have you got? Veggie burger and hard cider. Cheers, my dears. I'm going to say cheers to my water because I am just so dry, parched. Sharon says, bought a pattern for the first block. Well, have to order more. Love it. Hopefully, I can make them all. Um, I love that. I love that attitude. Hey, Goretti, good to see you in Ontario. Pizza night. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That sounds so good. I just had some noodles. I'm trying so hard to diet. And honestly, it's not, diet's the wrong word, but it's not as hard as I thought. It's more like if I exercise, which I have been, I hate it so much that I am so much less likely to like stand in the kitchen at the cabinets and eat snacks standing up, like just stuff my mouth with pretzels, like yeah, that game with all the spaghetti things sticking out, Yeti spaghetti. I'm much less likely to do a Yeti spaghetti with the pretzel rods if I have exercise like that, because there's like no way I want to reverse it and do more. So it's weird how putting yourself through pain really set you on a good track in a weird way. So listen, another thing before I forget about the blocks. So the blocks are there for sale in two different sizes, and you decide how you want to do it and what you want to do. But if you already have in your head, like Barbara Cornish, that Barbara is going to do like a bed runner for the foot of the bed. You know how you go to hotels sometimes and there's like this long strip, like a scarf at the bottom of the bed? That's like a bed runner as opposed to a table runner. If you get, for example, 3, 4, 6, 9, whatever blocks, and you say to me, listen, I bought 9 blocks on linen or rug warp or monk's cloth or whatever. Can you reverse them for punch? Sure. Can you put them together like Andy Warhol style, Hollywood squares style? Because I want to do them all as one piece. I will absolutely do that. There's no charge for me doing that, right? Just let me know in the notes if you want some special configuration, or if you want to do some kind of a runner, table runner, bed runner, and you want them all in a row. I will make sure to size them so they all come out even. And I promise you that I will thoughtfully, with my art training, employ it in that moment to be sure that if you've got a bunch of different designs, that I have put them together in the configuration that looks the best, right? It's not just going to be like, give me number 1, give me number 2. I'm going to really think about where to put each one, so that the whole piece looks the best. So you can trust me with those kinds of decisions. I promise you, I'll give you the best scenario if you're doing multiples and you want them together. Otherwise, you can have them separate. Um, so here's the thing. Here's the thing I want to tell you before we start the show and start looking at the carpet and talking about the history of the carpet. So when we do projects like this, right? I want to be able to use the outcome. I want to be able to use all your rugs. I want to be sure that they're seen. We'll definitely do something in Magpie Times, later in the year. I'm not even sure what Jeannie's timeline is, but later in the year we will do something in Magpie Times for sure. I'd also like to exhibit these rugs. So it occurred to me, and I already fired off an email, so I hope that you're all okay with this. This is like an if you want scenario. The Caswell carpet was made by Zerua Guernsey Caswell, and she was from Castleton, Vermont. I thought it was Maine, but it's Vermont. And that the Caswell carpet has been at the Met and then the Museum of Folk Art in Manhattan for years and years and years, and it is not on display. It is not on view, and you can't request to see it because it's too large. I have requested to see it, and it's too large. They legally need too many hands to take it out and show it to you, that they just won't do it. So it's not viewable. And it occurred to me, if we're doing this project where we're making all of these replica blocks, they don't have to be in the same color, by the way. Let's talk about that more in a minute. If we're making, elements, blocks from the Caswell carpet, I thought, in my mind, it would be my first case scenario that we had an exhibit and displayed them at the what did I just say? Vermont, at the Castleton, Vermont Historical Society. To me, that would be like the no-brainer place to display them. Not to donate them, but to display them. I would love to have an exhibit there of your versions of the blocks from the rug, because they have not had the rug for all of these years. And from what I understood from their website, right, I only just scratched the surface, and I wrote to somebody at the Historical Society And she wrote back from Castleton, she wrote back immediately and said, this is very interesting, and she's presenting it to the board. So if it turns out that it doesn't work out, I will figure out a different place for us to display. But in my heart, I would love to have a bunch of these examples of elements of the Caswell carpet, and I would love to put them in my car and drive to Castleton, Vermont, maybe meet some of you up there if you're anywhere near there, and have a grand party and exhibit going there, and then I will drive back and pick them up and return them after. So I think this could be a really fun thing. It'll be something like that regardless, but it would mean a lot more to me if it was in Castleton, because those images would be returning to that place. And I bet you I bet you everybody, I'm guessing, at the Castleton Historical Society, I mean, I don't mean to be obnoxious, but I'm thinking that their big claim to fame is the Caswell carpet. I might be wrong about that. But it might be that, they have invented 300 different things in Castleton, Vermont that we use every day, like this cup. But I don't know. I would think it's a biggie because it's not a big place. It's another curious thing, just looking at their website. It seems like the house that they are using for the Historical Society is the Guernsey house. So I don't think that it was Zeruah's house. I think it was the house next door. I'm not sure. I need to gather more information. But this is all really interesting to me because these are very, very old houses, 18th century houses that are super beautiful, classic, New Englandy, and this great history lived right there. Zeruah, if we could time travel, was making this carpet for several years on frames and piecing it together right there, like in the house next door. I would love for these pieces to go there too. So we'll see how it goes. I'm in touch. I've made contact. I got an immediate interested response. We'll see how it goes. So that's something for us to think about, because it's not just about having a project to do, keeping our hands busy, keeping our minds busy. In large part, it is about that. It's also about honoring the past, right? And honoring the people who came before us, who were the makers, who brought us to where we are today, right? We wouldn't be here picking patterns and choosing what we like and dyeing fabric and making things our way if all of these people hadn't set up this beautiful history for us. And she's one of them. So I would love to honor her by having that there. We'll see how that transpires. Let me catch up here. Cass says, does it have to be primitive colors, or can I do purples and blues? It can be any colors you want. Any colors you want. So in the original carpet, she's got lots of browns and neutrals, and she's got a little bit of blue. We're going to look at these together. Some blue in the flowers, the famous blue cat. We'll talk about the cat last. But it's a lot of browns, neutrals. This is embroidery. This is not hooking, right? This 1830, there is no hooking. She did this with a needle. She did this all with the embroidery stitch called the chain stitch. It looks like a little fat braid, a little flat braid. But I want you to do it in any color that you want, in any way that you want, and that's one of the things I want to talk about tonight. This is the shell that Melanie wanted right here. So now that one is available too. It does have that beautiful pink, sort of fleshy interior and these kinds of blue sort of zebra stripes. It's a very exotic looking shell. And, we'll look at the motifs that Zeruah used as she designed this carpet and talk about her inspiration, because each one is different, right? There are a lot of florals, but they are not similar. And there are quite a few birds, but they're not similar. Something like the shell must have been something really exotic that lived on the mantle or something like that, some special thing that was brought as a gift, a real treasure. So we'll look at the motifs in the rug tonight as well. Jessica, good to see you. I'm so glad that there's so many people excited about this project. I was so worried that I made the wrong decision, because Jeannie and I talked about this a while ago, and I thought, people loved Gee's Bend so much. I wonder if we should stick with something that's very contemporary. And I thought, no, I can't, because me and history. But I thought, do I really want to transpose my interests onto the entire group? But I thought, just like Kaz just asked, it doesn't have to be done in the same way. So we're going to go, we're going to look at all of the blocks that are available right now through ribbon candy hooking. Damn it, I forgot to put the shell into the slideshow. I'll put the shell in front of me so I remember. Sue's, great to see you. It is frigid in Texas. Oh, dang it. I am sorry. Well, good thing you're inside nice and cozy, right? Oh, man, you're ordering the cat. That's a classic. I think there's going to be a lot of cats. We'll have to decide when it comes to display how we want to display them, too. Because I don't want to display them like touching. I want to display it like a gallery. And when it comes time for a display, and I'm thinking about my part down the road, right? You're going to do the heavy lifting with the making. Down the road, I want to do some really academic and scholarly original writing about these motifs and have some text in the exhibit that walks other people who see the exhibit, not us. That we talk every Friday and often Monday about motifs and the history of art and artists, but not everybody has these kinds of conversations. And I feel like this display is going to require a lot of really solid and inspirational background text so people can look at stuff and go, oh, I get it. I get why the seashell is really special, and I get why the blue cat is so different, right? So I'm thinking about my part as you start choosing your part, the ones that you're going to do. Judy says, so are you thinking of displaying each panel separately or mounting them together in some way? Curious to see. It's going to be hard to answer that, Judy, until I know how many I've got, how many repeats I've got. I don't see us mounting them together because I can't, if the Historical Society is indeed in the house that it's showing still on the website, I can't imagine that they have a wall that's 12 by 12. It's a small little house. It's not, I would, I don't see any point in putting the blocks together, taking the time to actually put them together, unless it was an exact replica. And since I think part of the joy of this project is going to be being able to articulate your block or blocks plural however you like, I think we're already outside of the sort of possibility of making an exact replica. So I think I'm much more inclined. I'll have to think about how to organize the exhibit when I know how many cats we've got, flowers we've got, but how many of the same of each we've got. And there probably will be a time further down the road where I give some desperate shout outs for ones that haven't been done. And I maybe put some more up as well so that there's as much variety as they can. For an exhibit, I'd like every block to be shown, even if it's not in the same color, because we can print out like the actual block as like a photograph and in a little frame, right, and have that with the piece so that the conversation can happen like this is what the original looked like and that these are the changes that happened when this artist made it. And by artist, I mean you. So we have to figure this out together. I'm not going to make decisions for all of us. I always want to take the consensus. And if you all come up with better ideas or you think, no, I'd really like to see them together, then we'll have to figure that out together and figure out how to do that because it would be a huge project to stitch them together. I also need to find out what the situation would be with hanging a lot of pieces, or if I need to come up with some kind of display thing. So we'll have to see how it goes, what they've got. And it might be that I end up giving shout outs to, for example, the Green Mountain people that run shows and have lots of screens and things like that. It's not impossible that I would give like a panicked shout outs to say, can I borrow some of your display stuff, Vermont, while you're not using it? Like, it might be that we come to something like that. So it's really going to depend as far as the displaying. It's really going to depend on if we're able to do it in Castleton and what the space looks like and how many pieces I end up with. But what I don't want to do personally is attach pieces together that are like more than one person's. I would do that, and that was my original idea if we were donating it. But I've kind of fallen out of the idea of donating it because if we donate something that's that large and special, it is completely out of our control from that point forward, whether it's actually displayed or never displayed. And then we have done all of that work and created pieces that we love, possibly to not have it be displayed. You know what I mean? There's no guarantee with stuff like that. So I thought maybe it's just better as a temporary exhibit, and then you get your pieces back as your permanent souvenir for participating in this really great and I think important historic project. But all of this is just a placeholder until we have a better shape. And we'll make all of the big decisions together. I promise. I won't make any without you. The only thing that I'm going to do without you is I've already done. I contacted Castleton because I thought we would agree that that was something that would be a really cool, that would feel good, you know. Um, Marty, great to see you. Hello in Glenville, New York. Happy Friday night. Linda, great to see you. Hello in Jersey. Welcome back, my friend. Judy says you wouldn't want to limit people to some scale, color scheme, etc. This is exciting. I'd love to join. Um, I can't tell if that's a question. What do you all think? Should we be limiting? I don't feel. I just never feel. I feel like personally, I feel like if we're showing the individual blocks the way that Zorua did them in the original colors, that we're honoring each original block respectively. And it would be my first choice to honor each maker respectively and say, do it however you want. If you want yours loaded with quillies instead of hooking, you should totally do it that way. If you're going to do yours in like, needle felting, you should do it that way. Denise, great to see you. Denise, I owe you something. I'm going to have to check the message you sent me. I know I was supposed to send you. Oh, a download. Was it a download? It was a download. I'm so sorry. I'll do that as soon as I'm off. I won't forget. I'm sorry about that. Any chance it might be displayed at Tigger? Judy, yeah, that's another thought. I didn't even think of that, but yeah. That is something else I can decide. So yeah, we'll have to see how big it is, how dynamic it is, the variety that's there. I'm not necessarily saying go out of your way to make it wild and crazy. Go out of your way to make it you. But for people who love a color plan and love the way this carpet looks, and you're thinking, oh, I totally was going to do mine in like browns and peaches and warm greens, you totally should. I would love it if some of them were hat tip to the original, and I would love it if others were wild and crazy. So I want everybody to do you, boo, and they're all going to look great together. That's the main thing. It's going to make a really interesting exhibit. Thanks, Denise. I got so busy with getting my presentation ready for tomorrow. I never want to do exactly the same thing because I know I did that presentation in New Hampshire, and it is possible. I know that Jane saw it in New Hampshire, but she's also going to see it in the presentation in with the Mayflower Guild. And I hate giving the same presentation, even if it's just one person who's already seen it. So I did that all day, and then I did this. But I promise I won't forget. Sorry about that. Limiting is very Undiana. It is, Barbara. It absolutely is. Becky said, I did a Google search, and people have done it in very different ways, quilting, etc. Oh, really? Oh, I need to do a Google search. I haven't done that yet. I wish I would have thought to do that because I would have included those examples in our thing for tonight. We can always go back later and look at ways that other people have done it in the past, but let's dig in. I'm going to just, hold on, I'm fooling around with the dashboard. All right, let's dig in and let's get going with this. Now, this is the Caswell Carpet. So what is the Caswell Carpet? Let's talk about the history of this carpet, and then I'm going to stretch it out so you can see it more. I'm going to leave it on the screen like this for the time being. Let me just take one more drink of water. This carpet was made by Zorua Higley Guernsey Caswell, and she was American. This is an embroidered carpet. Zorua, and I'm reading off a sheet, I've got a fax about her. She was born on Halloween, October 31st, 1805. You know what that makes me think of right out of the gate? She was born on Halloween. Of course, they weren't celebrating Halloween at that time, 1805. But it would be interesting to do a block in like Halloween colors to commemorate like her birthday. Oh, I would love to see that. And she died in unknown date. She died 1899. She was aged either, depending on when in 1899, she was aged either 93 or 94, which was a good old age, for that time. She is buried at the Hillside Cemetery, and I'll show you a picture of her stone in a little while, and that is in Castleton, which is Rutland County, Vermont. Now I'm going to read a little bit of the history of the carpet while you look at this square. And you know what I'll do I'm sorry, it's not a square, it's the whole piece. What I'm going to do is unlock it, and I'm going to pull it open in quarters. I'm taking you for a ride. Don't get motion sick. I'm just going to pull it open a little bit. I'll do it in halves. Let's do that. And I'll talk about the carpet while you kind of peek. There we go. Peek at the piece itself. So the Caswell Carpet and I'm reading text from the Metropolitan Museum, is an outstanding example of American folk art from the 19th century. The project took Zeruiah Higley Guernsey Caswell the better part of 5 years, which honestly is not very much, is it, to embroider. Caswell was an accomplished needleworker. She sheared, carded, and spun wools from her own sheep, dyed them, and wove the coarse homespun fabric that is used as the foundation for the embroidery. Her father was a known manufacturer of spinning wheels and related tools, so it is said that Caswell used a wooden needle to do this work. The embroidery was done on a tambour frame. Each of the 66 motifs was worked separately and sewn together later. 2 of the squares carry the initials of 2, I'm going to change the language here, Native Americans of the Potawatomi tribe who were studying at the Medical College in Castleton, Vermont. Each of the townspeople took turns boarding students, and it is likely that during their stay at the Guernsey Caswell House that these 2 panels were made. According to tradition, Zeruiah Higley Guernsey made every part of this carpet from wool that she sheared from her father's sheep. While it has been recounted that she spun, dyed, and wove the carpet's base textile, which is blue and white check twill weave, that's on the back of it, it seems curious that she would have gone through all that trouble to weave a decorative fabric only to completely cover it with embroidery. It may have been yardage she purchased from a local weaver. Okay, so there's some question about the backing fabric, not the brown, but the sort of ticking fabric that's on the reverse. The same question can be asked about the wool embroidery yarn she used. Did she really spin and dye them all herself? Right, so we're not even absolutely sure about that. But Zeruiah, without a doubt, was the designer and embroiderer of the carpet, which supposedly took her all this time to create. I'm just paraphrasing now because I'm looking at something I cut and pasted from a different writer, different blog. It is signed at the top with her initials ZHG. Yep, I can see that on this slide. I think you can too. And the date 1835. Each of the 76 chain-stitched embroidered squares, decorated for the most part with flowers, leaves, birds, is different. There are 2 floral squares that are marked with initials. Okay, so these would be the initials of the Potawatomi students who are at the medical college. That in itself sounds like an amazing story that I'd like to research for this exhibit. I'm just paraphrasing and reading ahead a little bit. There are 2, okay. It is thought that these, okay, so the initials for those 2 squares are LFM and BYFB. I'm glad it's not BYB, BYOB, right? BYFB, that's better. Were made by 2 Native American students. Okay, so that's confirmed, who stayed with the Guernsey family while attending. Okay, interesting. And as I said, the whole Guernsey House, Caswell House, Higley House, the Historical Society seems to be in the Guernsey House at this moment. So, yeah, if we go with the scenario and we're able to do something in Castleton, I'm going to want to do a seriously deep dive there to make sure that the information that we're putting forward, maybe it's, if it works out, maybe it's something that we can do together, and maybe there could be like a weekend that I head up there, and if you're local or whatever, we could go and spend some time at the library and the Historical Society doing some research and writing some text. That would be a really fun way to spend the weekend and doing some, like, immediate research, because there's not a lot online about Zeruiah. What I'm reading you is basically everything that exists. Okay, here, let me just move this up while I finish this text part. Okay, I'm going to leave you right here for the moment. Okay, hang on. There are several other exceptional squares. One features a courting couple, and two others show either a pair of kittens or a pair of puppies. There's both. So there's one of each of those on a striped background that were undoubtedly copied from popular lithographs of that day. So exactly, Victorian lithographs that you would find in magazines that you could pull out, right? You could actually take them out and frame them, like cut it out with a razor and frame them. Lots of that at that time, lots of art and lithographs and prints put into magazines and newspapers for the express purpose of people cutting them out and using them around the house. A square has been particularly a square that has been particularly admired depicts a blue cat, an image that inspired the writing of an award-winning children's book called The Blue Cat of Castletown. So not Castleton, it's actually called Castleton, one word. But this 1949 book by Catherine Kate Koblentz, Coblentz, Catherine Kate Koblentz, The Blue Cat of Castle Town, two different words, 1949. I'll show you the cover of that book in a little while. This design was likely influenced by charming grouplings of usually 6 blue and white Delft Dutch tiles that altogether formed an image of a sitting cat. Oh, okay. Let's hold on that thought for a second. Perhaps Zerua's family had one of these Delft tile compositions in their room. The carpet that, okay, so let's stop there for a second. Let's talk about this. I didn't read this in advance. I wish I had. So what's being described is in Delft, right? Like in the Netherlands, right? From the Netherlands and lived there for many years. This is a big thing. It's not just in Delft. It's like everywhere that sells like Dutch souvenirs. But it's a big thing to put tiles like as a backsplash, like in the kitchen, in your fireplace, if like you're using it or not using it. Like people put up tiles as like wall decoration, and choosing tiles is like a thing. So if you go to Delft or to Amsterdam where they sell Delft, you can choose tiles that go together. Like I want a series of 6 or 9, or I want 16, or I want like, I want to fill the whole fireplace. But they actually sell tiles still that form pictures like a jigsaw. So you put this many squares together and it makes a blue cat. So this is very popular. There are a lot of blue cats in Delft. None of them look like this cat. But it would be a stretch if she's drawing it and embroidering it. The cat is like a classic motif. And yeah, when you piece the tiles together, you do get a blue cat. And he is stylized, but really, he doesn't look anything like this. But there's all kinds of motifs like baskets of fruit and baskets of flowers and scenes, right? Scenes from the House of Orange, the royal family, and landscapes and canal scenes. But yeah, you put the tiles together. So if this author is suggesting that she got some of her inspiration from looking at some of the tiles that were assembled around the house or in the fireplace or around the surround is another one, right? Choosing surround tiles to go actually on the facade of the mantle, not in the recess of the mantle, but around. There's also tons of tiles that are like geometrics and sometimes pictures that are made to connect so you can put like a scene around the mantle. It really is a cool thing. One of the things about the Netherlands that I really did like was this whole tile thing, because you see it in cafes and pubs and stuff. You see tons of tile work, and it's all different from one to the next, and it's all hundreds of years old. So this is a great window into where that particular, I'm going to lift it a little bit because the blue cat's at the bottom, where that particular tile comes from. We're going to take a better look together in a second. Let's just finish this. The carpet lay for many years in the Guernsey family parlor. The large rectangular piece on the left side of the carpet, embroidered with a basket of fruit and flowers. Okay, so that's the one on the far left, with a border of triangles on 3 sides, served as a detachable hearth rug. I remember saying that in a previous episode. So, in other words, the fireplace, if this is a God's eye blueprint of their family room, the fireplace is in the middle left, and that big, huge fruit basket with the sawtooth border can be taken off easily, and it would fit right around the mantle, the hearth, right? The stone hearth. So that's interesting because in times when it's not an issue, fireplace wise, to remove it, right? Or obviously she doesn't want it to be compromised. It's embroidered. But she could just take it off if there was a fire happening, I guess, or they were cooking there, or I don't know the ins and outs of the household. But it is interesting that it would be utilitarian to the extent that it's custom made to fit around that specific hearth. Amazing to think of people walking over this too, isn't it? Okay, hang on. Detachable. Probably removed during the colder months to protect it from embers of ashes from the fireplace. In the summer, it lay over the parlor's empty hearth. Although Zorua didn't marry farmer Manira Cas. Okay, although Zorua did not marry farmer Manira Caswell until 1846, 11 years after the completion of the carpet, it is known and beloved as the Caswell Carpet. So Caswell is Zorua's married name, and her husband Manira, his life was between 1799 and 1881. Also had a good long life. So this rug was never in the Caswell house, by the sound of it. It was in the Guernsey house. So interesting. Now I'm confused because it says on the Castleton Historical Society, it says right on the society's homepage that Zorua made the rug right next door, and it seems like the Historical Society is housed in the Guernsey house. So we'll have to figure out the right language there and what actually happened where. But it's interesting that that just irritates me right out of the gate. I got to get over it. The fact that it's called the Caswell Carpet because her husband's named Caswell when she didn't even make it within a decade of meeting him. I'm gonna take a drink of water to get over that. It's a small thing, but it's very irritating. I think the Guernsey carpet sounds just as good, but whatever. At least the Caswell Carpet has some alliteration going. We'll leave it at that. So again, this carpet was made between 1832 and 1835, about Castleton, Vermont. This is wool embroidered in chain stitch. Now we can come back to this paperwork if we need to. Let's look at some of these blocks together. Potawatomi. Okay, Judy. Potawatomi. Potawatomi. Thank you. That's very good. Potawatomi. I know I'm going to forget immediately. I'm not going to say it again in this episode, but thank you. That is a really easy way to spell that out for me. Potawatomi. There we go. I did say it one more time. All right. Hey, let's look at this a little bit, and then I want to look at some of the individual blocks. So let's start down here in the corner. You know what? I'm going to hold this. Stick with me for a second. I have a better idea. I want to look at some of these close-ups first, and then let's come back to the big rug. Now, let's come to him first rather than last. This is maybe the showstopper, and you can see clearly how the patches are sewn together. From a distance, it does look like one carpet, but you can see, I'm going to say it, there are some great Jack Tripper opportunities here, with the seams, and particularly I would think with the slate or whatever, marble, whatever hearth they had going, would have been raised on the part with the flower basket. You know, now I'm thinking even the brown is chain stitched. So I guess they were literally saying that it's possible that she wove a blue and white ticking stripe material. Possible, not guaranteed that it was her. But yeah, it looks like the stitching is directly onto that blue and white material, whether she wove it herself or not, because that brown, I figured the background was brown. It's totally not. It's all chain stitched. It's all chain stitched. So yeah, unknown, right? Unknown by scholars, according to the Metropolitan and the Folk Art Museum, but it is so odd in my mind that there would be a material that would be completely covered, like not one bit of it showing. And the idea of her weaving it just to completely cover it, also common sense wise to me, doesn't make that much sense. I would say, just as a person who makes stuff myself, even though it's, decades, centuries later, you wouldn't like weave something precious when you knew that your plan was to cover it. I mean, that would be anti-logical. Of course, projects sometimes evolve in a way that you didn't see the thing coming, but it does to me make more common sense that she would have bought the material from the store and just stitched over it. I mean, if her plan all along was to do this kind of work, just 100% coverage, not like a sampler where you've got like backing exposed. This is completely covered. Interesting, isn't it? This is an extraordinary character. Whether or not he's from a Delft tile, I mean, he could well be. The fact of him being blue is suggestive, but there are quite a few things that are blue that I don't know that they would have been also inspired by Delft tiles. So that's a who knows and a maybe. I wish there was more known on this carpet because obviously she was working on it for so long. It's such a shame that nothing is known. Neighbors, right? Neighbors coming to visit. Oh, hey, Zorua, you're still working on the carpet. Holy mackerel, it's been a while. Look at you go. And then goes home and writes in her diary, went to visit Zorua today. She's working on the blue cat. She's sitting at her tambour frame and embroidering right on the material that she wove, right? I just completely made that up, but I'm saying, isn't it a shame that with her working on this for so long, that nobody around her happened to be the sort of person who kept records or kept a diary, at least that has been found to date, that would give us more information about the technical making of this carpet. We can see how it's made. We can see the stitches. We can see the colors. We can speculate on the inspiration for the various blocks. But more than that, we cannot do without any further firsthand information, right? We can only look back and make good guesses. But this is an exceptional block. And you know what? If everybody ends up doing this block and there's just a few of the others, I won't be surprised and I won't be disappointed because it's a compelling block. There is something about the cat, about the posture, about the set of the eyes, about the set of the mouth, about the blockiness of the nose. Color-wise, it's so different. I love the vertical stripes behind him in those warm kind of autumny colors, soft fall colors. And then he's in these drippy indigo colors. He's got this human kind of a face, doesn't he? It's not really a feline face. If you took the whiskers off and put hair on it, changed the nose slightly and the lips a little bit, it would really look like a human face. It's a very, very serious cat, very stylized, and I would say one of the most famous cats in art. And when you all finish your blue cats, I think even more so. This is another one of the blocks. I don't think I did this one, but it probably will be one that I will do. This is a nice block because it's symmetrical. To an extent, with the exception of the sizing of the birds, it's a little bit different, and the birds' tails are overlapping. When I first looked at it and I was making decisions with this many choices, right, I made decisions that I thought were common sense. This will be great for beginners. These 10 will be great for beginners, and I was just thinking along those lines, but I think I do want to do more. I was thinking that this one had potential to be confusing because of the body parts that are overlapping. But I'm looking at it here and thinking it does have that potential because in this case she's used the pinks, right? And with them overlapping, it doesn't immediately read perfectly, but it is really lovely. And I love the sweep of the two almost identical stems, flowers below. Melanie says at that time ticking was a casual fabric used for pillows, mattress covers, dish towels. She wouldn't have wanted to show it under a showstopper carpet. Yeah, that's a great point. It would have been so pedestrian compared to what her vision was. Isn't there something so crazy about just the scale of this rug, right? I should have paused to say that, and I know we've said that before. There is something so wildly ambitious about this rug. It's like, how many times in your life do you get an idea for this grand project that is epic in proportion? And and actually do it, even in the 21st century. Like, this is a single girl, presumably helping keep house, like, with her dad. I don't know what her family situation is with siblings or her mom or anything like that, but presumably she had duties at the house besides sitting around sewing. It's amazing to me that she didn't just do like a hanging or a bed cover. She did something absolutely massive. I mean, it's unfathomable, and particularly at that time when everything fell to women. This is absolutely the era of women doing everything inside the house. Even if you are wealthy and you have help, there's still a lot that falls on the individual. And when men, kind of finish the things that they need to do and they need a little more help with this or that, then the women have to like pinch hit with that too. You don't see, in 19th century America, you don't see women saying, okay, well, God, I've really had it. I've been making the flipping candles. I've been doing stuff with animals and children, and the house is clean, but I have 5 more things to do. Can I get a little help over here? Like, that just did not happen, but it happened in reverse. Men would, no problem, saying something like, well, I do know that you have been working on those candles and you've been sewing clothing for the whole family, and you probably milked the cows and got the eggs and made all of the meals and did 1,000 other things that I didn't notice because I was outside working on the farming, but I've got a little left to do and it's going to be dark soon. Do you mind coming out and helping me with this? And of course, this is just life, right? The women, all of the women, out they go, out to help the men. So women are doing what they were meant to do. However that family, whatever was dictated within the family, it's different classes, right, from family to family, and depending on money and how many servants, if any, they have, if they're people who live there, if they're people who come for the day, if there's no help at all, if there's lots of daughters and lots of hands, it'd be different from family to family. But at the end of the day, the one unescapable thing about the 19th century in America is that women had a lot to do. So it is amazing that she was able to see this through, and that she was given enough hot minutes to be able to make a 12-foot by 12-foot carpet, and that her family just kind of allowed that use of time, right? Because it's not like she was getting paid for it. It's also interesting to me. I just wish there was more about the back end of the story to know, because speculating is fun, but I really would like to know what the family dynamic was and how this one person, it's not like, oh, my sisters helped me. It's like, no, it was her. Every block, her. I mean, it's a wild story. So it's 12 foot by 12 foot. So yeah, really, really big, really big. I mean, my eye just started twitching. I'm thinking about a person who's, for example, 6 feet is quite tall. It's 2 of them, like laying down in both directions. It's crazy. Dave says, I'm thinking about the process of dyeing the wool before coal tar dyes. I wonder what the colors were like new. My passing thought. Interesting. I don't know. That's the thing about not being able to see the carpet and having the photos that I'm showing you of the carpet are from the Folk Art Museum, and they are the only photos. There's like 5. I would love to see a picture of the back of it. I would love to see anything else on it. And I'd like to see some more blocks, like really close up. I wonder too. I wonder how much fading, if any. Now, she was using wool, but the ticking would have been, I would assume, cotton, or cotton linen, or some kind of like linsey, woolsey, some kind of blend. And Becky says, holy moly, that's a lot of work. I know, 12 by 12. Yeah, it's kind of incomprehensible. I mean, it'd be epic if like a rug tufter at this moment created a rug that was 12 foot by 12 foot, right? She's sewing the background in chain stitch, for God's sake. This is nutty. So this is another of the few photos that are available online to look at. So again, all of the photos that are available are in the slideshow tonight. This is the pair of cats that was definitely taken from an early Victorian lithograph. I recognize it. This is a super common one that people would have done, that people would have had up. People have stitched it. People have embroidered it. People have put it into Berlin work and samplers and everything. And here it is in the Caswell Carpet, embroidered in chain stitch. So it's a good one. And if anybody wants this one, let me know, and I will draw this one up. This one, again, for me, I passed on it at first blush, at first run through, because, again, same thing as with the bird's tails. I felt that the overlap could be difficult to read. Not if you're going to go outside of the box with a different color palette. If you are doing it in this color palette, I find the image confusing to look at, but you may not. And if you want to shout out for any of these that you're seeing that I haven't done yet, let me know. Same thing with this, another lithograph. This is a classic and famous, very common image. That's the companion piece to the playful kittens. This is like the playful pups. Another one that's really cute. If you feel like this is for you, this is such a cool color palette. One of the things that's interesting for me here is with the blues, as with the cat, you would like the two kittens. Denise, I'll do the two kittens. Definitely, I'll do them. As with the blues, did you notice how the color was sort of variegated? And it's like, why? Is it seems to be fairly irregular. It almost looks like yarn that's changing color, and it could well be. It's just confusing because it's the same effect with the blue, and I assume this is indigo, on both the cat square and this square. It's making that sort of Navajo pattern as we get the color shift. Now, the color shift is sometimes due to an inconsistency in the dyeing process. In this case, I don't know. I mean, I don't think that, I absolutely believe that she's not changing threads to create a pattern. I don't think she's doing that at all. But whether the color is changing because it is breaking down over time and it originally was a solid blue, or whether it was already had very high keyed and dynamic tonal differences between light blue and dark blue, it's impossible to say at this point without having more information, having a closer look, or having a look at the back of it. I don't know. Indigo is a reliable color. You shouldn't get certain threads here and there that only for a section of the thread you're getting color loss or color exhaustion. It made me think maybe she was storing, if she is dyeing, maybe she was storing it in a way, or that it was being dyed in a way that it didn't hit, like she was knotting it and throwing it into a pot or something, and because of the kind of knot she tied, dyers will know what I'm talking about. It just missed, every corner, every one corner, whatever, and then it makes a repeat pattern like this. It's almost like a dotted line. Curious. There's a lot of things that could have resulted in this, but my inclination is to think that there was an inconsistency in the color blue when she put it together. That's my inclination, because I don't see, because indigo blue is not problematic, not any more so than other natural dyes, and the other natural dyes aren't having this issue. So that's curious. That's really curious. Nikki, I didn't say hi. I love number 8. I did say hi, but I didn't read your thing. I love the number 8 size wool strips, but I have such a hard time hooking with my primitive needle, your primitive hook. I want to know what brand is the favorite of mine, the flat one. Okay, so this is a question I get all the time, because wherever I'm sitting, I grab the hook that's closest to me. So I've been hooking something with this hook, which isn't necessarily my favorite, but I just hooked a whole piece. It's for a future project, a very small piece, with this hook the other day, just because I didn't want to stand up and look for another hook. The flat hook is a vintage hook, and it's not even marked. Some of the flat hooks are, I think, what's her name? Susan Boyle, I think. No, Susan Boyle, that's a singer. Susan, what is it? Help me out. Susan, can't even remember. I don't know what the brand is on that hook. It's a vintage hook, and I don't even remember where I got it. I always pick up flat hooks when I see them, but there were lots of makers of flat hooks back in the day. I like the flat hooks because the shaft gets a little bit bigger and it opens the hole better for pulling through. But I wouldn't say that the answer to hooking primitives more easily is a flat hook. I would definitely not say that. I think that the answer to hooking primitives more easily is a hook that has, let me see, this hook. This hook has it a little bit. Not so much. Damn it, where's my other hook? I have hooks in the other room. I'm going to draw it. So Nikki, the thing is not, let me see if this, it's too late. The thing is not that it's flat. I like the flat hook. I love the flat hook. It's great. But with primitives, the kind of hook that I think you're going to want is, I'm going to do this a little bit exaggerated. One that's more like this, where you've got the hook. You don't want the head of the hook to be necessarily big because it's hard to poke and it's hard to pull back out. It gets snagged. But I did this exaggerated, but what you want is what you might want is a graduated hook that gets thicker as the shaft gets bigger. It gets thicker because when you poke that hook in, it makes such a big hole, right? Because of like the thick part, that that the hole is like wide open, and you pull that loop right up and then it shuts right behind it, right? So like a trap door, right? Boom, trap door's open, pull the loop up and it shuts right behind it. But it's not, the flat hook is not necessarily helping with that because the flat hook looks like this. And it's flat, which is cool and it's great to work with, but it's not graduated. It doesn't get, it gets a hair thicker, a hair, but not like some of the other hooks I have that get much thicker. The hook I use most often is the Miller hook. I have the Miller hook and the Hartman hook. Those are both styles of hooks that I love that get much fatter when you use primitives. They are more expensive hooks for sure, but they make life so much easier and you're able to work much faster with those kinds of hooks that have that effect. So while I wish I could help with the flat hook, it's not being manufactured anymore, and mine isn't branded. So I can't even say, well, look for this on eBay because it's not a branded one. Susan Bates. So Denise, yes, and Barbara. So it might be a Susan Bates. It might be. She did a flat hook, and there are quite a few flat hooks out there. There are a few flat hooks that I bought because I saw them and I thought, oh, flat hook, I like flat hooks. This was before I started using the Miller and the Hartman hooks that have the big fatter shaft on them. I used to always pick up the flat hooks, and I have got some flat hooks that do not hook well because the crook, this part, is not deep enough. So even within the world of flat, I'm doing this backwards, this part, the crook, right in here, isn't deep enough. So some of the flat hooks have a perfect crook, and you can catch and pull. Other flat hooks I bought because I went, oh my God, flat hooks, and I got excited, and they don't pull up any material, like sock yarn. That's it. So so some of them I don't even use anymore. So it's dicey. It's really dicey. It's a great conversation talking about the hooks. It's always going to matter how your hand wants to hold it. If it's comfortable holding like the pencil versus the big sort of knob one. It's always, Nikki, do you have any stores near where you are where you might be able to try the hooks before you invest? Because, the Hartman hooks what are the Hartman hooks? Like 50 something dollars price point? Am I on target with that? I haven't bought one for a while, right? I have a couple and I love them both. The Miller hook I got, I think was 70. It might have been 70, closer to 80. And it took me forever. It took me years to buy those kinds of hooks because I thought, well, I'll be danged if I'm going to buy a hook that costs that much. But then I did, and yeah, I love them. I love them. They work great. But again, sometimes I use this if this is the closest thing to me, or I use the flat hook. And I'm so sorry to be so inconsistent and confusing in the videos. In a way, it's frustrating, I know, for you as viewers to see me using different supplies. And that's one side of the coin. But the other side of the coin is maybe it's also good to see that you can use so many different things and make it work. And it really does depend on you. My choices are often dictated by my laziness, and I am not a lazy person. But if I'm sitting down and I'm finally getting to hook something, the chance of me standing up is not very high. So, hence, I use stuff like this. That's really bad hook. Mm. All right, let me catch up here for 1 second. Um, Black threads. Would you consider? Oh, would you consider doing the larger side floral as the pattern? The part that you said is detached. Absolutely, I would do that as a pattern. Absolutely. I want to talk about that more too. I can certainly do that, and I'll do the just based on the thread so far, and I'll do the two cats as well. Absolutely. And Melanie says I have a 6 millimeter and a 3 millimeter Irish hook. The Irish hook is the Hartman hook, right? So I'm not gonna go down this rabbit hole, but there was a big problem because there was a rug hooking company that thought that the Hartman hook was that Hartman was out of business, and and didn't actually check, and started making the exact same hook and calling it the Irish hook. And Hartman was not out of business. They were making hooks, and they were very, very upset. And I don't know where that stands because obviously that's a really big problem when you just start manufacturing something that belongs to someone else because you think that they aren't making it anymore. Big problem. So some people will say the Hartman hook and some people will say the Irish hook. But essentially they are the same hook. And I think getting them from Hartman is the right thing to do because they make the hook. But we also call it an Irish hook, right? So nothing wrong with that. Irish hooks are sometimes language shifts, pencil hooks as well. So Hartman hooks are sometimes called Irish hooks, but sometimes pencil style hooks are called Irish hooks. This is too much at once, isn't it? It's just so much confusion in this craft, and we don't even have standardized hooks, right? Joan Moshimer, right? Unless we're talking about Joan Moshimers, we don't even have standardized hooks. Not across the board anyway. We're talking about apples and oranges every time. I don't even know where I got this hook. I'm not sure who made this. It's a beautiful hook. It's a much finer hook than I typically use. I don't recognize it at all, but it's a pencil style hook. So that's enough. Well, we should do a whole show on hooks maybe, similar to the Hartman shafts. Melanie says both of those, the 6 millimeter and the 3 millimeter, have tapered shafts. So that's the word, Melanie, that's the word. I said graduated, it's tapered, right? Because it gets fat and then it gets skinny. And similar to Hartman hooks. Yeah, it's a nice feature. It helps so much. It really does. But only, if it helps a lot. I love hooking with those expensive hooks. But if you know that if you buy a $70 hook, you're going to feel sick about it and you're not going to enjoy it, then you shouldn't. Obviously, you shouldn't, right? You shouldn't go to the restaurant and buy a steak that costs like $100 if it's going to make you sick to eat it, right? You know you, and if you've got stuff that's working, then don't be thinking about the expensive stuff. Hey, Diane, happy Friday. Good to see you. So let's look. Okay, so that was it. Hey, that was it for the photos that are available from the Met and they shared photos, right? Because now it's at the Folk Art Museum. That's it for photos online. That's it. So I've been in touch with them twice over the years to say, can I see the Caswell Carpet? And it's a no, and I understand why it's a no. But there aren't more photos, right? There aren't more photos and there aren't better photos. So this is what's frustrating. And I just wanted to show you her grave in Castleton, Vermont. So she's buried at the Hillside Cemetery, if anyone is local. Manira is her husband, so his name is on the top, and then Zerua underneath, his wife. Hey, Joy, good to see you in North Carolina. Welcome and happy Friday. Happy Friday. Woohoo! So that brings us to, we're not done with the show, but that brings us to the end of the photos that I have for you. So let's start looking at some of the images that are on ribbon candy hooking right now. Now, why don't we start with the seashell? I just want to remind you that the seashell is there. I will put the ones online. Remember, tomorrow I'm traveling. So tomorrow I will be in Reading, Massachusetts with the Mayflower Guild, and maybe I'll see you there if you're going. If not, I think people are welcome to go if you're local. Reading, Massachusetts, right? Massachusetts. I only say that because there's a Reading, Connecticut, and I'm in Connecticut, so this is Reading, Massachusetts. So I'll be there tomorrow starting super early, and then after that, I'm going to go stay with my mom so that I can go to church in the morning, like with her. and then I'll be back on Sunday afternoon. So you won't see the new patterns until Sunday afternoon. But I promise I will do them then. But Denise, I'll send you the other thing tonight. So just a reminder about the seashell. So Melanie requested the seashell, and the seashell is up on ribbon candy hooking. By the time it got up, I forgot to add it to the slideshow tonight. This is what the seashell looks like. So this is a beautiful, where's my finger? This is a beautiful design. The kind of, what is it called? A cowrie, something like that shell. It's just a beautiful combination of a nautical theme with this leafy green decoration around it. I just love the sort of seaweedy feel of the greenery around it with the dots, right? With like the kind of flowers that are like little balls. It's just so petite and precious. It's so pretty. And again, could be done in any color. So I'm going to flip through these patterns, and some of them I don't have a lot to say about. Others, I think kind of jog ideas. And shout out if you see ideas. Hi, Cecile. If you see ideas as well. For example, this is a simple one with 2 flowers. So this would be good for, maybe it's not the best absolute beginner pattern, but if you've done anything before, you'd probably be really comfortable jumping into this. You can put a lot more detail into the flowers, right? This would be a great pattern to use if you're a big one for swatch sets. This would be a great pattern for swatch sets because you can imagine like the leaves being like half one color, half another color. You get like you could get a nice kind of ombre, or you could just do a graphic half and half. The centers of the flowers could be done really well with swatch sets, going from really dark to really light. Could be very realistic, but it's such a small surface area, you could probably poop out like a flower with one or even a half a swatch set. Could give you some really good effects. And with the smaller flowers, it's like the bud that has the wild kind of hairy, leafy fronds coming off of it. That's an interesting thing to think about too, because it makes me think, ooh, would you want to do anything with like eyelash yarn or mohair? Would you want to do some proddy on that part and just have strips, right? Not shaped pieces, but just your wool strips coming out, but cut long. So they looked all like fingery, like ugh, reaching out for you. That could be those could all be really fun effects to do with that particular block. This is another one that I thought was really interesting. It reminded me of a couple of years ago when we did that big section on teveve, which are the Hawaiian quilts. Remember? They're like applique, but they're reverse applique in that they are cut, more like mola, right? More like Mexican mola art. They're cut, and the stuff is set under, if memory serves. But in any case, it's a sewn quilt, a Hawaiian style quilt, and the word is teveve, Tivae. We did a bunch of episodes on teveve, and this is what it looked like, because teveve blocks are all quarters, right? Broken into quarters. So a central motif, usually florals, and usually all 4 quarters. Oh, you're right. Maybe a boy. You're right, Cecile. The flat hook might also be a boy, Boye, right? Could be either of those. And because this one isn't branded, I can't tell you which of the flat hooks I found impossible to use and which one I thought was amazing. Rita says Hartman Hook Neville is still in business. Absolutely. Oh, Rita, I saw you wrote earlier and I didn't. Hold on, let me just go up for a second. I missed that, sweetie. How did I miss you? I knew you wrote earlier. There you are. Back in the 2000s, a few of us hookers decided to go embroider bed rugs styled after the Caswell Carpet. I think you finished. No way. Do you still have them? No way. Do you know of anyone else who did that? I'd be so interested in that. It would be fun to make like a display within the display of that project, right? To kind of honor that project in the earlier 2000s. That could be really cool. I'd love to see that up with this stuff. If you remember who else was part of that project, that would be super cool. So this is a cool one because it reminded me of the teveve, and it also looks like a paper cut. So cut paper, not like a paper cut on your finger, cut paper. So this is a great one to do graphically. This is a great beginner pattern, right? You can't go wrong with this. This is a simple beginner pattern. If you wanted to go like hog wild with this, you could think about quilly in the center of the flowers. Again, you could think about ombre kind of swatch changes from the central flower out. You could think about doing on any of these blocks, for example, the flower or the main flower in the center and or the four supporting flowers. You could think about doing them in a different material, like a different fiber altogether, metallic yarn, color changing something. There's so with a simple design like this, it's very, very basic and also symmetrical. You really can do wild and crazy times because it's gonna hold, right? The composition is so um, um, what secure. What do I usually say? I forget. I am so tired. I'm sorry. This is what comes of waking up at 4. This is another one that is very good for beginners. It's a simple one, and the reason I outlined some of the leaves is because it was a big feature on the actual block that she did a different stitch around the edges of those leaves. So while you don't have to pay attention to details like that at all, I put them there just in case you want it to be like absolutely correct. I am absolutely correct with the lines on all of these. I took no liberties, right? I was very literal. I did leave parts out that were color change and not lines. I didn't leave lines out. I was absolutely true to the pattern with all, but I did simplify because some of the look of the blocks derives from color change, lines in the changes of color rather than the actual outlines of the design, if you see what I mean. So while I have not left any of the design lines out of any of the motifs, I have simplified some of them because some of them had to be appropriate for beginners. It does look like a thistle. So this one, the tops were definitely rounded, but you could absolutely push this toward a thistle. That makes a lot of sense to me because it really does. The block looks a lot like a Jacobean piece. If you think of Jacobean embroidery like Erica Wilson, or Pearl McGowan's Jacobean period, where you get a lot of leaves that are outlined in a darker color. You get a lot of kinds of flowers that are imaginary flowers as opposed to actual flowers. So this particular block, although it's simple, there's a lot of room for interpretation and imagination. This is the kind of block that is so simple that you could add text, you could add numbers, you could drop in a colorful background like a hand painted or a plaid or herringbone, something like that, that is quite patterned. This is one that you could outline and keep the design quite simple. You could even like do a second technique like standing wool on the inside of the leaves, right? You could do proddy on the thistle part. There's lots of things that you could do. Just remember that if you are thinking about doing something, this is just a crazy stupid tip that doesn't even matter. If you are doing something that involves proddy, be thinking about the fact that if you're going to want to display your rug when we display them wherever, if it's very long proddy and the rugs are up in a historical society setting for say 2 or 3 months, be thinking about like if it's very high relief proddy that it might start drooping. So while I think proddy is a great idea, be thinking about things like that so that your piece looks just as good at the end of an exhibit as it would at the beginning. Proddy can sometimes be tricky with that depending on how exaggerated it is. This is a pretty one that's a little bit more fussy, but it's still a very simple piece. A lot of fun. The 2 flowers that have the squiggle in them, I took liberties with that because there really was no color definition on the center. So I just improvised. With this one, the main flower seemed to be embroidered in a way that it was meant to look like a piece of ribbon work. Do you know what I mean? Ribbon work where you are like sewing a three-dimensional ribbon down and it actually loops around like that. It was stitched in chain stitch like all the rest of it, but it really did look like it was like trompe l'oeil ribbon work. So that's something to think about too. This one had these big fat buds. Some of these squares are funny because if you look at this one, again, I'm doing this very literally. I'm a stickler for stuff like this, but not in how it's executed. If it bothers you that the bud is touching the leaf, then just shape it so it's not touching the leaf, right? You don't have to do it exactly like this. I just felt like I had to draw things exactly the way that they were, but you don't have to do them exactly the way that they are. It is not typically good when things are touching each other in this kind of a design. It's a fanned out design. It's an unnatural design, right? You didn't just drop a few flowers that you were carrying around in your hand and they fell on the floor like this, right? This is a really sort of manufactured presentation of these flowers. And yet some of them in many of these blocks are touching each other. And again, if you don't like it or you have outlining and you're thinking, oh great, now they're touching and it screwed up the outline, it's too heavy, just adapt it. Adapt it in a way that makes the most logical sense for you. This was a neat one. It was a fat stem that almost looked like a scallion or something, like just the bottom of it was fat, that grew into these big fern shapes supporting two sets of three flowers. So a fairly symmetrical pattern, very fluffy, right? Very leafy, very unnatural looking, but I love this design. Um, there's something about it, right? It also has a lot of room for play. It's a simple design. Is it going to be tricky to hook all of those individual parts of those leaves, right? Ferns or whatever they are. Yeah, it is going to be a little bit tricky, but you could just do them as straight lines and make them stylized, right? You don't have to worry about having some be larger and some be smaller. If you just turn them into a pattern and just do them in straight lines, this is a very graphic presentation. These flowers are just graphic, right? There was color change that looked like this in the center. It was blocky and globby. This embroidery on the Caswell carpet is, for the most part, not super realistic. It's very graphic. So it's more in the vein of a Jacobean work, right? So solid shapes or colors within shapes, not so much realism, like 400 shades in one flower. You can do that with this too. You can do something with a swatch set. It would look absolutely awesome. You could make each one of these flowers a different color with a different swatch set. How cool would that look? And then maybe you're thinking, ooh, would it be weird to make like the stem like black or charcoal and make the background white, like super modern looking? No, that would be awesome. Really, wouldn't that be awesome? Like just something so different. What if I put a green background, but I wanted all of the greenery to be white? Ooh, well, that would also be fantastic. I think that would look amazing, right? You really can't go wrong with your color palette. You have to do stuff that you really like. This is another one that resembles a thistle. So you handle it however you like. This one has more of a sweep of angel wings, doesn't it? It's a very soft leaf, laid out in such a way, design-wise, that it almost looks like wings. Um, Very, very sweet. I'd be tempted with a piece like this to put like faces on the flowers, like talking to each other. I'd be very tempted on a piece like this to stylize all the sort of the berry balls on the bottom to maybe be, I don't know, French knots or French knots done, if not like in DMC or silk, but in like thick yarn, right? Just like a big fat French knot drawn down back through. Like how cool would that be? That would look fantastic among your rug hooking. It could lay on top. It could be instead of. There's so many things that you could do with all of these simple designs. And I think you're going to be, oops, sorry, I almost deleted that. I think you're going to be surprised when you get working on them. I think they're going to go very fast. as I said that, I opened this one. This is one of the more complicated ones. And you see the pricing is like a few dollars more for some of these, just because it's going to take me so much longer to do these. But we have to do them, right? We have to do them. We need to have all of them in the show. This is one of the more complicated ones for sure. It's not bigger than her other blocks in the rug. Let me see if I can find it. Let me see if I can find that one. Hold on. The ones that are more complicated are not necessarily bigger. I mean, they're not bigger. Let's see. I would have thought I had it. Yeah, I don't have that exact one. But I have, oh yeah, here it is. So it's this guy right here, right? Like this one's coming up. That's Easy-O Peasy-O's. This one I just showed you. And this one is the one we're talking about right now. So you can see it's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but it is the same size. You're going to look at this one and say, oh, I can get that one done in like an afternoon. And you're going to look at this one and go, oh, Jesus, that's going to take me 6 months. I mean, maybe not. It depends on what size you get them in. Something to think about. There are the two sizes, so something to think about. So with this piece, again, it does remind me kind of a paper cut or a wool applique. It's another idea to do something that's like, I've already mentioned this, but like a fusion or a combo of techniques, doing stuff that's like hooked and adding some felting, some wool felting, or adding some applique to both speed things along, some embroidery, whatever you want, right? Whatever you want. Keep them textile, but whatever you think. It doesn't matter to me how you execute them. I'm hoping that the lion's share are rug hooked. I'm hoping just so that we are also doing some sort of rug hooking outreach and showing people how great this craft is. But I hope that if you feel like doing other techniques, I hope that you do. Because there's lots of room for any kind of interpretation that you're thinking of. Your idea can be accommodated. So this is the one that's much simpler, but it was the same size as the one before. I forgot to say earlier, if you're getting multiple and you want them all, like you want a set of 4, you want a set of 9, you want a set of 16, and you want them all together, I will adapt the sizes so that it works. You won't get something that's all wonky and geez bend with not matching lines. It will be all resolved. So don't worry about that part of it. Don't worry about thinking, well, I've got 3 squares and I want one more. I better not choose a rectangle. I will figure out how to make it work. It might mean some dead area, but it might be that I take out a different color Sharpie and draw an idea on the pattern for corners. The piece that we were just talking about that is not in the slideshow, the big piece that was detachable for the hearth, this piece, it's a little bit cut off here, but right, this detachable piece, some of the problem solving in terms of space on this piece was adding the sawtooth border, right? We don't see a lot with borders. We see a little bit with borders in here, but you can see some of her problem solving in the piece as a whole is to occasionally drop in borders or motifs in the dead area that fills up the space. And sometimes the trick is to do stripies, right? Is to embroider stripies in the background. Sometimes just add more leaves, right? She doesn't seem to like dead space. I'm also noticing that there are a couple of like flower pot pieces. So I'm going to want to do at least one. Well, I want to do all of them, but I'm going to do this one too when I get back on Sunday. I think it's a little more difficult, but I think that's a good one to offer. It's just impossible choosing. They all have value, and they all have so many possibilities. So this one, again, I mean, God, you could do anything with this. It's very unusual for the Caswell Carpet. It's a very strange block. I love it. But God, doesn't it seem modern? Even those 2 little flowers in the center of that kind of pinched diamond, unexpected. And the globby shape, like almost like fingers, feathery fingers. It's so unusual. It's like a Zorua abstract. You can do absolutely anything with that. And that is another one that I think is good for beginners. This one's a little more complicated. She's got a nest that is sitting on a branch with lots of leaves behind, and she is doing one of her space economies in the dead space below by adding another row of. Oh, let me see. You said looks like thistle. This one looks like you think this one looks like a thistle? You mean the round parts? Could be. This reminded me of the artist Peter Hunt, just that kind of folk art, the decorative painting, where when roses are interpreted like a ball like this, almost like a sphere, like a planet. In folk art decorative painting, particularly Peter Hunt's, you see a rose broken down like this, exactly like this. So for me, it read as roses, but it could absolutely be thistles. This one is more complicated, but it does have a lot of whimsy to it. So there's two parent birds feeding worms to. Oh, I forgot to put the eye in the last bird. Oh no, I'll have to fix the eye. You see, the bird on the right is missing his eye. Gosh, I don't know how I did that. That's like so obvious. But yeah, this has just got more parts to it, but this is another easy one to do. You see how the beak of the bird on the left is kind of overlapping the leaf? This is stuff that you'll figure out as you do it. You see how in the background some of the leaves aren't literally matching up to the design? Again, stuff that you'll figure out while you do it. You don't have to go strictly with the lines. I'm picking out the lines that are there, but if you can solve problems in different ways, you should, because that's what Zorua did too. She completely solved problems in different ways. She has got a nest on the top of what is probably like a rose bush or some kind of a stem, but she's doing sort of spatial awareness, composition, problem solving, 19th century style. And yeah, she's got a lot of whimsy happening as a result. This is another one. Oh, Diane says, will you be offering the one on the top left that looks like two morning glories? Ooh, Diane, let me check that one out. Let me see. Two morning glories. The top left. Let me see. Oh, it was probably, oh, yeah. Diane, was it not this one, was it? Was it that one? Or, gosh, this one almost looks like a kaleidoscope or a snowflake. Or a paperweight. I wonder if that was a paperweight. I'm going to have to check that one. Yeah, Diane, I want to do any one that you want. I should just really draw them all. It's just going to take a little bit of time. Oh, this one, Diane? Is it this one? That looks like Morning Glories, doesn't it? I wonder if that's the one. That's Diane. Let me know if it's the one that's right under Zorua's initials, because that would be. Oh, that. Well, no, I did that one. So it can't be that one, right? That was just done in blue, so it doesn't look the same. That's the one that I said has the fern leaves. And you said two Morning Glories. Yeah, I wonder if it's this one. And if it's this one, I did do it. So that one will be coming up. Let me know. I'm going to leave that out on top of my papers here so I can come back to it easily. This is another one that is absolutely a sampler of Jacobean motifs, right? Because this is what was popular. So this is what people saw. The butterfly it is touching the flowers, so you can space them out more if you want. The bird, the super Jacobean breakdown of stylized leaves, and then imaginary flower within the leaves, right? The shape of the flower is just a vehicle to do these fancy leaves with stitching around the edges. Pretty simple design, but fun to have two different characters in there, the butterfly and the bird. So this one was weird to me in that there's two flowers sticking out on the left. Like the butterfly seems crowded, but yet she wanted the two flowers. It seems like, yeah, it is what it is. I mean, it's very pretty and it will be beautiful without a doubt. But sometimes it's hard to tell what she was thinking. I have to say, I think this is my personal favorite. It's so odd. It is irregular and unbalanced a little bit. It's a little bit off kilter. Remember, this is freehand needlepoint. She's not tracing designs onto her backing, right? She doesn't have a pattern drawn. She's probably basting or running a stitch to get her main lines in there. And yeah, and she's doing it on a frame. So when she's taking it off the frame, some of them are a little bit wonky and wobbly. And this is handmade stuff, isn't it? This isn't perfectly balanced like it would be if I were drawing it for myself and going, okay, the right side has a weird curve to it. This is how it is. And for me, this is how I would hook it because this is the way it is on the carpet. Again, you modify things however you want. I just love this one. This one seems to me like she was like gazing into a gazing ball and she was seeing William Morris in the future, shades of William Morris. It's such an oddball thing. I can't imagine what the inspiration was for this. Possibly stained glass windows. Um, I don't know. Possibly wildflowers in a garden. We're not at the Art Nouveau period or anywhere near it, where people would be using these kinds of swirling, curling lines like this. Yeah, Judy, it does have an Art Deco feel. It has the Art Nouveau, Art Deco feel. It's got curving lines, and yes, Victorians used curving lines, but not like this. This is really odd, and for that reason, I just love this one. I'm definitely going to do that one, and we can all do all of them. So, yeah, the Sage Gardens Art Studio. I would have to fix it and make it look symmetrical. I totally feel that. I totally do. I get it because if it feels off kilter to you and it's such a small tweak, you absolutely should make sure these are exactly the way that you want them. Like everybody, make sure they're exactly the way that you want them. Some of you will want to do exact replicas in the original colors. Some of you will do stuff that's completely different. All of it will be beautiful. I have no doubt for sure. That is for sure. All of it is going to be beautiful and have value to look at and be educational for people to look at too. This is a much simpler bird. If someone's looking for a bird, this is a much simpler one. Busyness of flowers, but manageable. Very simple shapes here. This isn't one of the showstopper designs, but it is simple and it's a great primitive, and it's going to come out great. No matter what you do, it's going to come out great. The lines on this is the lines I put on the neck and the wings, was color change, and I just said I omitted for the most part color change details, but in this case I left them because the fact that the bird had bands of color I thought made it look like this specific bird. So again, up to you. If you end up getting one of the bird ones and you're like, well, hey, my favorite bird is a cardinal, it's going to be a cardinal, then it's going to be a cardinal. This is another wacky one where she uses the kind of finger wing motif. She does this on quite a few things. It's very nondescript, looks a little bit like wings. Um, it looks a little bit like a Valentine. So this is too early for Valentine's, and I'm just not sure. I'm also trying to thinking about the writing part of this project that's miles away, but thinking about what the genesis is of some of these patterns. And if you remember the Victorian period, it was a period of great. Um, there wasn't. It was at least in the UK. It was a period of very low attendance at church in general, but it was a time of very elevated feeling about what religion should be. So there was a major disconnect between the way that people practiced religion and the way that people regarded religion and rules, right? And rules dictated through religious traditional norms and acceptable cultural behavior. So this is the time, right? The Victorian period. And Zeru is way, 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 she's in the 1830s, right? But we're still seeing art in the early 1800s that will get kind of rolled up as Victorian art in general. We do start seeing things happening in this time period. Zerua's time period of like the more Georgian period of like the 1820s, 1830s, when she would have been brewing this idea. We are already seeing things like religious motifs kind of, I was going to say infiltrating, but that sounds sinister, people's homes, because it is the time when it's about to get amped up. But right when Queen Victoria steps up and marries Albert, and they have this large family, and the family is in the spotlight, and suddenly traditional family values are at sort of the heart of every family, no matter what your social class is. Everybody seems to love Victoria and Albert and their family and try to emulate their traditions and the way that they live. And this is the same for the way that people decorate their house. It has a massive impact on interior decoration as well, in architecture. And during this period, there is absolutely a parallel drawn between women having successful homes in terms of being the host of your own home, right? the boss of your home, the host of your home. This is the period when men will go out to work no matter what class you are, right? If you're like one of these barons of industry and you go out to the office, right? This is something new. Not just people who are like clerks or work in factories, but like, if you're a wealthy person who makes a lot of money, you're going to the office, like you're going to work, which leaves women at home to do the whole house thing. And it becomes very clearly the job of women to make the home like an Eden for men, right? There's tons of religious references at this time to make the home like a Garden of Eden. So when the man comes home from work, he's so tired and she has everything just right. And it's meant to feel heavenly. And it's not a coincidence that that comparison to heaven, ties to religion, visible ties to religion, are starting to be seen in architecture, in interior design, and in decorative art, like we're seeing inside people's homes. So this is the period where we're seeing plants coming inside the house. Garden of Eden, right? It's not like people didn't have plants inside the house. Why would you have a plant inside the house? Like you're growing it outside to eat it or to pick it or to bring a bouquet inside, but you don't want like an atrium with like a greenhouse ceiling full of like these lush plants. Oh, yes, you do. Oh, if you're a Victorian, you do, right? Garden of Eden right inside the house. And during this time, women of even really high classes who have leisure time are ordering from catalogs lithographs, original paintings, but they're choosing the painting. So if someone's saying, for example, I'll use one of these as an example, I have no examples. If someone's saying, pretend this isn't the Caswell Carpet and it's a catalog, I want this painting, somebody is going to paint this painting in oil on a canvas for you and send it to you. And everyone else who ordered that painting has an original painting, but it's the exact same painting. So you get this culture of tons of original paintings, original Victorian painting, listed artist. Not really. It was like a mass produced but hand painted painting. Same thing with crafts. It worked the same way. Same catalog, you would be able to choose a motif that says Home Sweet Home, or trying to think of one that would be a bit more religious. Bless This House. But you would choose what your motif would say. And motifs at this time typically are religious. You really don't get Home Sweet Home. All of them are about God. So, and women of very high classes would buy them and would be sitting there with their 6 underskirts and all of that expensive clothing and stitching the motif and putting it up on the wall. The reason I went off on that bender was because some of these motifs, like these weird feather fingers, look like something from a motif, like a religious motif, as opposed to a lithograph, a textile, a piece of artwork, a piece of sculpture, an actual flower or shape found in nature. They look more like shapes we see in motifs, which are more folky, just more folky shapes because of the text, right? The motifs are words. I'm saying motifs because that's what they're called. It's like words, right? The quote of your choice is called a motif. And then they would put kind of shapes around the text, the motif, to fill out this space, but it would be these kinds of shapes. So to me, when we're seeing these oddball blocks that have these nondescript shapes in them, to me they're most akin to actual motifs. And that actually fits the timeline too. I don't know. This one driven home motif wise with the hearts, because a lot of the motif stuff had crosses, but more often hearts, right? We don't get that like highly sort of Christianized look on the motifs. You get the words, but you typically get more folky motifs during the Victorian period, like hearts. So a lot of this stuff is consistent with mass produced. They didn't sell kits, but they would sell you the thing printed, right? So you would get the backing fabric and you would stitch over it with whatever words you chose with your material. This is another one that I think is really curious, and the placement of the flowers is trickier. So while some of Zeruah's compositions look like cut paper cutting to me, some of them look more like she's copying a bouquet, like a picture of a bouquet, or a print of a bouquet, something that she saw where flowers overlap. And she's not perfect at that part of it. She's perfect at embroidering. She's less perfect at drawing the design. But at the end of the day, all of the individual blocks look beautiful in the actual Caswell carpet. So we can expect that even with designs like this that have a slightly confusing composition, I don't want to say flaw, but the spacing is a bit unusual. I like the two big the fat flowers on the side. It's the two that are kind of on top of each other and overlapping. You'll just have to be careful with color with stuff like that. But it will come out beautiful because the original block is beautiful. It is confusing to look at, and it might be less appealing to choose, but this is not going to be a difficult one. And you can even stylize that top flower. Remember, because she's stitching, right, she's getting each of those little individual lines in a stitch. And you might not be working that way, and you might not want that kind of detail. And you are so good for me, just cut it out. Just cut out the parts that you don't like. Crescent Moon Pie. Hi from Illinois, working on my bees. So you lost track of time and missed this show. Oh, well, it's recorded, so it's going to be there for you. You'll watch it later and find out what we chatted about. Well, it's great to see you, and I'm so happy that you're working on your bees. Nikki says, okay, a graduated hook sounds like it would work much better. Miller and Hartman. I think it'll be great, Nikki. I think it's easier on your hand because it does so much of the work for you because it's so thick. If you poke hard when you poke in, when you punch in, poke hard, and it just opens the material up so well that I'm just a bit aggressive when I do it, and that feels good too. And it's just easier, much, much easier pulling up. So I hope that that's a good tip for you. I hope that you do like it. It's not just easier, it's so much faster. Because you're not like struggling and getting caught and pulling it up and it gets caught on something. And that doesn't really happen with those kinds of hooks. So I love those hooks for that reason. All right, I'm kind of scooting along here now. Another one with birds. This is another, she does like to cross motifs. The other birds that we saw as a pair, their tails crossed. This to me makes more sense, like their bodies crossing, but they're both beautiful patterns. And this one, we've seen this kind of platform on a design before. Sometimes she handles it like a fence, like almost like a picket fence. Or like a wrought iron fence, but this time it's solid. So I didn't forget to put the stripes in, it's just solid. So that's another one that you can tackle however you want. One of the birds had kind of plumage, and the other had some like wild hairs. And again, totally up to you. Very basic. I tried to keep the lines as basic as I could with these. And you recognize this guy. I kept the lines exactly as they were drawn. And again, feel free to take out some of the shapes. They are odd shapes, but these shapes make up the cat the way that it is drawn. If you have this face on the cat and the shape of the body, don't feel like you need to keep these unusual shapes within the cat's body present. You don't have to if you don't want to, nor do you have to keep the stripes in the background or keep the background the same as it is. I put the whiskers in so that they were in the right place, but you do whatever you want. I have a feeling we're going to see lots of variations on lots of these. This is such an oddball as well. This is another one that I know I'm going to want to do. It's a very simple pattern. I love the fan design on the corners. That is so sort of Japanese. That's like reeks of like, we've got a little bit of like Japanese imported high-end decoration stuff inside this house. It would only be for people who had money, but she's obviously seen fans used in a decorative way like this, because we do see this with quilting, but I don't know enough about quilting to know whether we see this yet as quilting. This to me looks more like a decorative art reference than it looks like a quilt reference, particularly because the fans are still shaped like fans, not like lopped off as a triangle, you know what I mean? I just love the center being this kind of pinwheel of uneven hearts, right? There's something for me so poetic about a pinwheel of uneven hearts. They aren't all the same shape and the same size. Sage Gardens, you would probably want to fix this one so that it's a bit more symmetrical, and it would look great, perfectly symmetrical too. I think it'll look great either way. It's just a wacky design, and I really, really love this piece. I'm definitely doing that one as well. This one's fantastic. Again, pulls from the Jacobean style of embroidery for sure. If you notice at the top, this is almost like a tower of layers of petals. And for that reason, it reminds me of like an upside down petticoat. It's just very different. At the top of it, there is a line drawn that connects to that point on the two supporting leaves. So you see there is an extra line, and the center, which is the background around just the flower, is a slightly different color than the actual background. That's another, please take it or leave it. Don't make that color change just behind the flower if you're not feeling it. If you are feeling it, it's there for you. That's exactly where the line falls, but you don't have to do that. You do whatever you want. You could make this really colorful. You could make this monochromatic. This is another simple one that there's a lot of room for play, but it's a really stable design. That's what I always say. It's a very stable design. This is another really pretty one. I took a lot of the color detail out of this and just kept the basic shapes. It looks very whimsical because we've got those weird flowers again that I associate with folk art decorative painting. Now, it is possible that she saw folk art decorative painting because you do see this style of rose in Pen Dutch painting too. This style of rose is called rose mailing, right? That, rose mailing, it had a renaissance in the 80s as well. But these big round roses that are done in a spiral is rose mailing, and it is part of the Pen Dutch tradition. And although Zorua is in Vermont, she might have seen it. She might have seen a little letterbox or like some kind of a little caddy, pen caddy or a jewelry box that had painting on it and wanted to do some of the stylized Pen Dutch floral, not knowing those words or calling it that by that name at this point yet. But it's an interesting piece because we've got like a peacock style bird. And then we've got these funny flowers that look like roses with these big balls. It has a fairly Magdalena feel to it because of like the lollipop look of it. It's a super, super pretty one. This is, I think, another one that I'd like to do. Unusual bird. I can't really make out what the bird is. I'm not sure that it matters. This is one of her best compositions, if not her best. Something about the bird's body, right, having a lot of weight and just an unusual pose, like an in-action pose, even though his feet are both planted. His neck kind of curls up into this open space between flowers. Now, we know that she didn't often do that. She's got a lot of stuff touching. She's got a lot of stuff overlapping. It might be that she was trying to create the illusion of lushness and just layering flower and upon flower and leaf upon leaf. But in this design, it was important for her to have the head be very easy to read, or maybe it was an accident or a coincidence. But in any case, this design is exceptionally strong. And not all of them are, I think, perfect designs. I think they are all perfect to work with. I think they are all going to guarantee success to you. I feel that strongly, or I wouldn't be offering them to you. I feel strongly that you're going to have success with any of these designs. But especially with one like this, you don't have to worry so much about your color palette because the part that's important is the bird, right? He's turning to face backwards. So that's a little bit a peahen. Okay, Gail, that makes sense. It's a peahen. So that's a little unexpected. So you really want that to be clear. But it's not touching anything. It's not overlapping anything. His beak isn't overlapping a leaf or over another flower. So this is a good, safe design to go with if you love primitive, but you're a little bit afraid about color planning. Choose one of the designs that's easy to read when you look at it with your eyes, so that it doesn't have built-in confusion, right out of the gate. And if you feel a bit more ambitious and you like some of the ones that have a little bit of line confusion, and just say to yourself, you know what, I got this. This is not going to be difficult to do. I absolutely got this. The flowers look very MCM Rittermere. They do. They absolutely do. It's like she was time traveling. Wouldn't it be funny if we ever find out she was time traveling? She is touching on other periods of decoration. I cannot think of a time leading up to the 1830s, when we would have seen these exaggerated big puffs, like almost like Dr. Seuss, uh, landscapes. I can't think of another time than we would have seen that. So she is doing quite a few things that are eerily um, contemporary and interesting, right? So this is one of the more complicated ones as well. This is the one that has the courting couple, and this was a hard one to draw because it is a very confusing block. The block has some overlaps, the two arms touching, the two hands touching. I did take a liberty there because in the original drawing, she's got her hand clearly extended, but his hand is so big that it obscures like half of her arm and it looks like a little bit of a mess. I thought if I could just give her a straight arm and and she's kind of reaching out for him. You decide how you want to handle it. Look at the original block as well when you're doing it. The arm confusion, it was tricky in the original block. It was not clear at all. It looked like she part of her arm was missing. So that was tough. I have to admit. His hand reaching for a flower was also tough. So I cleaned that up a little bit, so it didn't look like his hand like was missing, and or that he was growing like a plant arm, like becoming like half plant half man. So this one had some confusing parts to it. I think she was I don't think she was struggling. I mean, this was another beautiful block, but I think this was a challenging one for her. The costumes are challenging too, particularly the man's costume. He's got a sort of a long coat, a tailcoat on, and the neck thing is what's called a fichu. It's like it's like pleated, and it would be standing up. Like it would be silky. It wouldn't be transparent like lace. That was like a woman's garment, but it would have been pleated. They had these pleaters that were like metal roller things, and you would pleat it like every time you wore it, so it was like really crisp, but like a pleated lampshade. You know what I mean? Like a pleated skirt, like really pronounced crisp pleats. So that in the block is hard to see. So I softened the shape of the standing collar so that it was just easier. When you look at the original block, if you feel like some of the modifications I made are not right for you, just change it however you want. Again, my only goal in kind of translating these blocks from really small pictures, since most of them are not pictured large, I'm blowing them up, and the quality's like not there because again there's only like 4 that are online. It's hard to tell what's going on, and the carpet is not in perfect condition, so it's hard to tell where there's loss and what the intention is. And there is a random line on the right hand side going around like in a circle. It does not look like a sun or anything like that. It was a color change. It's a pronounced color change. It was a completely different color on the right side in that top right hand corner, completely different color than the rest of the background. And I like the flowers on the right, and I like the flower pot on the right. Fairly complicated design in the pot, like sort of V stripes. She's got a striped dress that you can do take it or leave it. And there is another confusing tall flower on her left. So that's exactly the way that it looks in the drawing. Again, make a good decision for yourself with that. It has kind of a bendy stem that meets the ground. The leaves are touching her in the original drawing. Yeah, whatever you think. Make whatever changes you think. Make it right for you. All right. Oh, Janice, good to see you. Hello in Massachusetts. I'm going to be in Massachusetts tomorrow, Janice, at the Mayflower Guild. I wonder if you'll be there in Reading, Massachusetts. I'll be there tomorrow. So, lots to pick from. I'm going to do a bunch more. I'm certainly going to do all of the ones that we mentioned. And I just wanted to show you a few other things that I referenced in this episode. I'm already late and I wanted to get to bed. Dang it. This is the book I was telling you about. I'm sorry for the low quality of it. I wanted to show you the old book cover. This looks like it's a reprint. It looks like it has the Caldecott metal on it. But this is that book that we were talking about from 1949, The Blue Cat of Castletown. There's lots of different covers over the years for it. This was written by Catherine Kate with a C, Koblenz, Coblentz. But if you're interested in this, obviously doesn't bear any resemblance to Zerua's cat in the Delft colors, but it's a cute tie-in, and it's supposed to be based on that block. So I'll probably order it myself. But there are other covers. I just wanted to show you this one because I think it was the original cover. And inside the book, I thought this was really cool. There, on the end papers, there is a map of the town. And I don't have my best glasses on right now, but I thought when I looked at it earlier that I saw some of the houses. I'm just going to stretch it open. Hang on. I'm taking you for a ride here. I just want to see if there's any houses that we talked about, because I'm wondering if it's the original Ebenezer Southwood. Okay, I see on the right, Zariah Guernsey lived here. So it is a map of the town. The river that sang to the kitten. Oh my God, how cute is that? The hat shop. John Gibson's house. The medical college. Oh, the medical college. That's where the two Native American people were going that stayed at the Guernsey house. Does anybody see the Guernsey house? The road to Aruka Hyde's mansion house. John Gibson's house. Okay, we saw that. Interesting. I can't make out any more of it with the glasses that I've got on, but I'm going to order this house as soon as we log off. And then, Denise, I'm going to send you your thing. But I thought it was interesting because another little bit of history. And again, let's see where the conversation goes with the Castleton Historical Society. Let's see how it goes, because my heart is so set on that. It might fall through. You never know. This might not be interesting at all to the people who are there. I can't imagine that, but it might be, right? People feel differently, but I'm happy that the idea is at least being presented to the board, because it won't be like the whimsical response of one person, which sometimes can go, any way. So let's see how that goes. And if that goes well, I feel like I'll be extra excited about this project, because I want something about I want to make these blocks, and I want them to go home. Even just for an exhibit. And I want it to be a big deal, and I want people to be saying her name, Zerua. I want people to be saying her name out loud again and going, that was her house, and that's where she sat and sewed all of these blocks, because we can't see the actual thing. Maybe I could put some more pressure on the Folk Art Museum. You never know. It depends on how big of a project this turns into. We're a big group, and if it turns into a really big project, you never know. We might be able to do thumb screws in a way that we never thought we could do the thumb screws. Yeah. So let's see how it goes. And in the meantime, let me just think. Do I have anything else to tell you before I log off? I'm going to be out tomorrow. You know where I'm at if you want to find me. Catching up on orders. I got a lot of orders in the last couple of days. Thank you so much. I desperately needed orders. Got to be paying some bills here before I really get in trouble. Yeah, I don't think I've done anything else new. The Pierre video, that was my whole day the other day. Yeah, I think my head has been in this in my free time and orders, is getting these blocks out. So I will work on getting more of the blocks out for you. You will see them pop up really soon. You get going on the parts that you're doing. If you ordered them from me, I'll start working on them again on Sunday p.m. Sorry for the delay. It's not a super time crunch with this. If you're looking for colors, look at Ribbon Candy Hooking. I have lots of color swatches, swatch sets, all those crazy 8s. They're out there for you. I also have tons of grab bags. Have you seen the grab bags in there? Somebody ordered grab bags and it put it on top of the algorithm, and then a bunch of other people. The grab bags are like, I don't know off the top of my head, but they are a deal. X amount of ounces, and you choose like what color, just basic, right? It's not exactly like the picture. It's like colors like autumn, colors like funky, colors like traditional. Those are great for doing these blocks too, because it's a giant grab bag of strips that I cut right then. They're not old strips. They're strips that I cut when you place the order. So they haven't like had it. They're all withered and gross. They're like nice, fresh strips for you to use. So if you're looking for colors and stuff, please think about shopping with me. always, right? And let me just catch up. Thank you, Crescent Moon. I can't wait to see yours, Judy, too. Judy says, oh, Geraldine Brooks has a historical novel about the first Native American to attend medical college. Ooh, I wonder if there's a tie-in. How interesting is that? Ooh, let's do a to be continued on that. I would be so curious about that. I'm going to write that down really quick. That might be a good. I want to check that on Audible and see if I can find the book that you mean. That would be really cool. And Judy says, "Oh no, here is about Caleb." Oh, okay, no. So that was a no. Okay, good lead though. He was actually at Harvard. Interesting though, isn't it? I'm going to order the book about the cat right now. I will see you all soon. Monday is a big day. It is Inauguration Day, and it is also Martin Luther King Day. So I don't even know what time events are happening, but I was hoping to be with you at some point on Monday. What I was hoping to do on Monday, I will check. I know we're all in different time zones too. I was hoping to log on for a show for an hour, and I think I will do that. What I was going to do was take one of the designs that I want to do right out of the gate for one of the blocks, one of the Caswell Carpet blocks. I'm going to pick one for myself. And I was going to do a video live with you for an hour, hooking the background. I've had a couple of questions in the last couple of weeks about how to hook backgrounds. And I don't think that my videos so far have been clear enough about hooking backgrounds. So I thought, let's spend some time for 1 hour in place of coffee time on Monday. And I guess my plan, I'll have to firm up the time with you, but depending on what the kids want too, because it's a day off. But I'd like to spend an hour starting my block by hooking the background and giving you some tips for those of you who have background questions. How can I hook a background? I'll show you how I plan to hook the background of the piece that I'm working on Monday, and I'll get a head start on my first piece. Maybe if you're like downloading pieces or you're working on something else, you'll want to grab your work and work with me just for coffee time. It won't be a long hook along or anything, but I plan to do something like that on Monday. So we have a little bit of time together on Monday. If you need some time to get together and work on something creative on Monday, I want to be here for you. And so I will give you the time for that as soon as I consult the kids. Have a great weekend, Kaz. You too. And it is an exciting project. I'm very happy that so many of you are interested and already involved. Let's keep it going. This could be really big. Fire, love. Thanks for the live. I'm a newbie to rug hooking and I'm obsessed. I'm so glad. Well, I'm right here if you need anything. Join in the Caswell Carpet Project. Super fun. We're all here to help you. Super big welcome. And April, great to see you. Everybody, have a great weekend. Maybe I'll see you tomorrow. Otherwise, I will see you on Monday. And TBD, to be determined what time we'll get together on Monday. Hang in there, everybody. And I